You know what it is, the Front Left podcast, Front Left of all conversations. You got myself, Tezza, and I'm joined with...
Tezza.
This guy
Josh. LFT yesterday.
And we have a guest in the building.
Cool.
What's happening? Adam Rowe.
Okay.
Mr. Rowe.
Get to know.
Before we get into the conversation, though,
Yeah, man.
I have an icebreaker.
Okay.
It's a random one, but it's to everyone. So I was listening to something, and then I just had this mad thought. Say, like, you're in a funeral. Yeah.
He's laughing already, you know.
Because it's funny. So if you're in a funeral... Okay, it's not, the funeral's not funny, obviously.
Jesus
But
Christ.
say, like,
Depends who's
you're in a-
dead, really, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, so say, like, you're in a funeral. And, like, obviously, you get to the end of the funeral and you get to the bit where, like, everyone's having refreshments and stuff. And a girl comes on to you.
In the funeral?
In the funeral.
Okay.
Is it acceptable to go through and get the number? And
So,
then,
have I ever told you I've ever done that before?
no. Have you done that?
Yeah.
So Josh is saying yeah, obviously.
Okay, so I don't want to. So you know how I say, like, I got an auntie who's like related to. I always considered their grandma like
Yeah,
my
I know who
grandma.
you mean.
I was
Yeah.
at the funeral. I showed Ola her Insta one time. She
Yeah.
is banging. So, it's mad because. So this is the funny part. So this is the funny part. She's younger than us. I'll tell you that. Not young jailbait from in jail, yeah, but she's younger than us. And bro, if you look at her Insta, I'll have to show you afterwards. But she's like elite here, but she's quite young, or she's younger than us at the time.
How old are you?
I was like 23. No, I wasn't. It was like I was like 22, 23 at the time.
And if she's younger, bro, how old are you?
She was like 18 on the dot.
Okay.
So you see
On the dot. Did you idea?
on that day.
So what happened? Yeah, I had to. So I've got
Did you ask for ID?
fam. So this is the funny part where it gets to, like, so I got an auntie who's like literally like my best friend. So you've met Bissy, innit?
Yeah.
So like like she doesn't like to be called auntie.
Okay.
Like she always likes to be called by her name, but she's like literally a couple of years younger than my mum. So like she's my wing woman. Like she's my wing woman. So I was like, yo, that girl's banging it. She's like, oh my god. She made out like this girl was like some young thing. I was like, no. So I had to speak to her and be like, yo, how old are you? Because I swear you're older. She said she was 18.
Right.
So calm. It's like, this is at the time of like Insta. It's like, you got Insta. Follow the Insta now. Nothing come of it. Now her Insta's like 25k, body's looking fumbled the bag. But yeah, when you have to go, you have to go. It doesn't matter, wedding, funeral, christening. If you see the love of your life, fuck it.
I think timing is important, though, and it depends on who it is.
Yeah.
Like, if it's the widow,
Yeah.
you can't be like moving on air if her husband's just been put in the ground an hour and a half before.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I don't know, because some people deal with grief differently. So
Yeah, but not on the day.
no.
Day of the funeral, even.
Like, I'm being serious. Like, some people deal with grief differently, because like I went out with Trey on A-level results day.
Yes.
Yeah, and someone died in my family, but it was like a proper big death. So I've already had 3 big deaths in my life, and that was one of them. And
You're smiling.
it's actually quite funny because I left Trey. And I was smashing someone, but it was the most randomest smash ever. Like, I still rate it as one of the worst whacks because I was emotionally.
Okay, yeah.
I was like, what am I doing here? Like, I actually left my house because my mum was like, don't stay indoors, like, go out, because she was like, this is a lot for the family, and so she was like, go out
and stuff.
And then went, and I was like, you know when people say they use things like to like people use drink or some shit,
Cope.
I was like, this is a bit mad, isn't it? Like, what is this? Like,
I
what are you
shagged a
doing?
girl the night my mum died.
Yeah. Whoa,
Yeah.
that's a big one.
And unintentionally, I sort of used her death as a chat up. Like, I didn't mean to do that. I got talking to a girl and she was like, I was out with my cousin. What had happened was, like, obviously, my ma died and then all the family come to ours for the day. And towards the end of the night, I was like, I just want to carry on drinking. I just want to go out. I had a big argument with my dad, told him to fuck off, and I went out to town with my cousin. He was like, I'll go with him and look after him. And then I'm just sort of like bevied and half upset and at the bar and just got talking to this girl and told her what happened. And she was like, come on.
Yeah.
I'll look after you.
No,
And,
like, legit.
went back to hers. yeah, fucked it, and then was like, look, I'm going back to town with my cousin. She was like, yeah, no worries, see you later. And I went back to Carl and carried on drinking again.
Fuck it. It happens, man.
She's an angel, ain't she? Like, do you know what I mean? She felt like
his mum
grief
died,
turned
you
it
know
on.
what, yeah.
Maybe that was
Sometimes it does turn on
Yeah.
people,
that
innit?
night. Yeah.
It's like that woman from Power. Fucking everybody. The teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sensational.
Yeah.
You won't catch me lips at no funerals.
Nah.
No.
I don't know, man.
I don't know. I think if it was me, I wouldn't go for it there and then, but I'd maybe just initiate the convo for like another time. But on the day, I don't know. Depends.
We need to see if you get to that situation of big death and see what happens.
Yeah, but I don't think I'll be thinking of moving to Gal if that happens. But yeah. But anyway, yeah, moving on to the conversation. So obviously the people, we have a guest here, Adam, who's part of your podcast is...
It's the Have a Word podcast. Have a Word with Adam
podcast.
Rowe and Dan Nightingale. It's the full title,
Okay.
which it should have just been Have a Word, but Dan sets it all up and it's just a bit wordy, that, innit? So, Have a Word. Yeah, I Have a Word pod on all the social medias.
You can have them in brackets with
Yeah.
Adam and Dan
Yeah.
in brackets.
So I wanna, now we said your podcast, we're gonna do it in order. I wanna know, so we didn't even say you're a comedian.
Yes.
So
Well, I used to be before it was fucking illegal, like, yeah.
yeah. So before a podcaster, how did you become a comedian? Because I feel like comedians is one of them where the comedians that I think you see mainly is like, at that time was like, who was it? Like, I know Lenny Henry. British comedians are talking about Lenny Henry. What's his name? Lee
Mack.
Yeah.
Lee Evans.
Lee Evans as well.
John Bishop.
Yep. That's the Scouse one.
Yeah.
I don't really see him do like comedy for time.
Well, he doesn't do much telly anymore,
Mm-hmm.
apart from when it's sort of his thing. So, like, comedians get to a certain level where they don't need telly anymore because they just know they can go, I'm going on tour and it'll just sell.
Yeah.
Like, there's not that many that are like that. Like, Bishop's probably one of them, Mickey Flanagan, Michael McIntyre. They all did telly for a bit and then just become so popular that, like, and they make so much money from these big tours that, like, if you do Mock the Week, you get $1,000. And you like most people who do Mock, I haven't done it, but like they spend like at least half of that on writers for that week because like you get told like 2 days before the record, here's all the topics we're going to talk about. So you've only got a finite amount of time to write jokes that are going to be broadcast on the BBC, which is it's a big opportunity. So people tend to spend a lot of writers, but you're not getting Michael McIntyre for $1,000 to do 2 days work now. When he could put a gig on in his back garden and make $100,000. Do you know what I mean? Like, so. Yeah, people get to a point where they don't really need to do telly anymore, and Bishop's one of them, McIntyre, Flanagan, Lee Evans obviously didn't really do telly ever because he was big from before there was a lot of comedy on the telly. Yeah, I got into it. I nearly did it at sixth form.
Okay.
Because
like in school.
Yeah, so there was like a sixth form talent show that I know you went to St. Eddie's. You know Zoe's place, the children's hospice.
Yeah.
So there was like a talent show, and it was not just our sixth form. So there was a bit of a collective thing with our sixth forms for a while. So there was like Eddie's, Broughton Hall, Holly Lodge. Yeah,
cause
like if your school didn't offer a certain course,
you could go to other schools.
You could go to the other one to do it. So between that collective, they put like this talent show on, and I was sort of involved initially with like the setup of it, and one of the teachers was like, what were you going to do? And I've loved stand-up since I was a kid. My mum introduced me to it. I was like, I'll do that. And then I remember speaking to one of my mates and he was like, if that goes badly, your social life's in the bin. Yeah. So don't do it. And it sort of scared me out of it. And then I was working in McDonald's and there was a fella who worked there called Dave. I was really good mates with him. He's one of the managers. And he was obsessed with stand-up as well. And in the end, he was just like, I'm going to give it a go. Do you want to give it a go? And I wanted to do it. I was never like the funniest one among my mates. But I'd always just wanted to do it, and then once I did it, I just literally didn't look back. Yeah. Like, did a few open mics, Hot Water Comedy Club, which is now sort of like a tourist attraction, really. There's people all over the world who've heard of it because of how many of their videos have gone viral and that. But
there's quite a few Hot Waters. There's like, the first one I heard of was the one on Deansgate Locks.
Yeah, no, that's the Comedy Store.
Oh, is that the comedy store?
So you got it on
Liverpool,
Hot Water's just Liverpool.
Yeah,
is it just Liverpool?
Yeah, it's opposite where Bumper is, and there's another one on Seal Street.
So Hot Water started in Envy, the nightclub.
Yeah.
It was just a Sunday night open mic. So that's where I did my first ever gig. There was 32 people in the audience. 28 of them were my mates, and 2 of them were Hungarian tourists who had literally no idea what they'd walked into. They just walked into the building, paid £3 to get in, and was like, "What's this?" They started in there. They moved to the Crown Hotel pub right by Lime Street. Then they moved to a function room in the Holiday Inn, and then eventually they just bought Seal Street. And then that got so busy, like they were literally turning people away, like hundreds of people away, like every night of the week. So they bought the old Magnet, which is where they are now. And then things sort of settled down a bit. Yeah. They're still very popular. This, like, when it's allowed to open, it's sold out every night. But they eventually closed down Seal Street because they were like, we'd rather be turning 30 people away than have sort of like 100 people in each room when they can both hold 200.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So obviously then you've done that at, like, so your stand-up was after school, was it? After sixth form?
Yeah, so I was 18.
So you was like 18 and stuff. So did you then think this can be my career, or was it just still like...
When I did my first few gigs, no.
Yeah.
Because, like, at first you get fuck all. You don't even get, like, your bus fare or, like, the train money or petrol money. You get
nothing.
Stage time. And that's being competed for, do you know what I mean? There's, for every one gig available, there's 20 people who want to do stand-up who are competing for it. So at first it was just, this is fun, I want to keep this going. And then I got my first bit of money for it, like £30 to do like 10 minutes, and I was like, what? And then I started speaking to the professionals, because the way it sort of works, there's open mic nights where no one gets anything, and then there's professional nights, and there's a sort of middle ground, which is on a Thursday or a Wednesday there'll be a professional compere, a professional opening act, a professional headliner, but in that middle section, which is the easiest section to perform in, they'll have like a newer act on who gets £30. So I was there getting like £30 for 10 minutes or whatever, and then I'm looking going, this is their job, so they're not getting £50 for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And you start speaking to them, and you learn what people are in, and you're like, I'm doing better than him.
Who sets the price mark though? Like,
the club.
The club.
So like it's sort of, unless you're famous and you're literally putting bums on seats, which is not that many people, it's a faux pas for a club to pay different people different money. So the headline, like for example, the Frog and Bucket in Manchester, the headliner gets £200 per night. So if you do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you get £600. And if I do that, I get that. And if someone who's been doing it for 20 years does it, they get that.
Oh, right, okay.
And it's up to you whether you want to take the gig or not. Every club pays a little bit different because they're all in different capacities, they're all different ticket prices, they're all in different parts of the world. Weirdly, London comedy clubs pay less than everywhere else in the country.
Oh man.
What?
It's because their rent's higher, and also there's like so many more comedians there. So if I go, I'm not doing that for £120, they go, well, fuck off then, we'll get him to do it. Like, they don't need me. But at the same time, London clubs are quite fun because the audiences are so eclectic. It's not just Londoners. You've got people from all over the world. If you're in Liverpool, the majority of the audience are either Scouse or students.
Yeah.
In London,
It's anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, so obviously you started performing in these places. Had you performed in just Liverpool, or had you gone to...
No, I started so my second gig was in Preston at the Frog and Bucket. So they used to have a Preston menu as well as their Manchester one. And it was a new act night. It's called a Gong show. So the way it works is you go on stage and you're trying to do 5 minutes, but 3 people in the crowd have got a card with a frog on it.
Yeah.
And if they don't like your act, they hold the card up. And if all 3 go up, you get fucked off.
Yeah.
So you've got to get to 5 minutes before all 3 go up. So it's like Britain Got Talent with the buzzer, right? Yeah. So like you start out and 5 minutes seems so short. Like if someone tells me now, oh, you're doing a gig at the weekend and you're only doing 5 minutes, I can't really do it because that's me saying hello. Like 5 minutes flies, but when you're new, 5 minutes feels like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Especially when there's people who can boot you off. And my second gig was one of them. And luckily I didn't get booted off. And then what they do is everyone who didn't get booted off, at the end of the night you get brought back on stage all together and the audience clap for who their favourite was. And then if you win, you get to go back on another night and do a slightly longer set, still for no money, but slightly longer where the cards aren't there. You get like a bit more freedom from it. Yeah. That was my second gig, and the third gig I ever did was I ran it myself. Do you know the Casa on Hope Street?
Yeah.
The old like Dockers. So me and Dave, who I worked in Mackey's with, we'd sold tickets to our friends and family and we packed that Casa place out. and booked like 3 or 4 other, it must have been even a bit more than that, maybe like 6 other comedians to just do like 10 minutes each. And then from there, it's just, so it was around the Northwest at first. And then you start getting offered gigs slightly further afield, Chester, Manchester, then Leeds. And it's such a sort of close-knit, it's like certainly the open mic scene, everyone, although everyone's competitive and they're competing for the same spots, they sort of help each other out. So they'd be like, oh, you're quite new, there's a gig in York, do you want to come and do this one? And you get to know different places, and then your reputation spreads, because like comedians travel all over the place. And then when you're doing those sort of semi-pro nights, or even like those new act nights, the open mic ones, the host a lot of the time is getting paid, and there'll be a professional act. And like there was a gig I did at one point in Chester, and the host was now my co-host of the podcast, Dan Nightingale.
Is that how you met him?
I'd met him, he hosted a lot of those Frog and Bucket Gong shows as well, so I'd sort of met him around. But this gig in Chester, he's hosting, and the headliner that night was Davy Johns, who's an old school Geordie comic. He's been going for years. You know the film I, Daniel Blake? It was about like the benefit system in the UK. He was like, it was a Ken Loach film from a couple of years ago, and he played the lead in it, and it gave him a sort of big like platform boost. But like that was the first time I met him, and I had a great gig that night, and he put me in touch with his sister. And at the time there was a massive comedy chain called Jonglers, and they were in like loads of major cities. There was one in Leeds, one in Birmingham, one in Cardiff, Glasgow, all over the place. And like he knew the booker of that because he'd worked for him for years, and he was like, look, there's this young lad who's good and you want to start booking him. So you then do tryouts for them where you're going to do 10 minutes in the hope that they'll then book you for 20 and pay you 200 quid or whatever. So that's, you end up going everywhere, because people, certainly if you're good anyway, like people see you and they start recommending you to different bookers. And it's quite a sort of close-knit community in that regard. All the bookers talk to each other. So if you're a gobshite, your name becomes mud quite quickly. And if you're good, you get to sort, like, even now I'm just over 10 years in. If I see a new act and I see that they're good, like I know that in 2 months' time, I'm going to see a load of posters from, because obviously my Facebook's full of different promoters and stuff. I'm going to see posters with this new guy's face on, because word just gets around dead quickly.
That's actually quite sick, because like, you know, I don't know any other industry that would like put other people on. Like from the sounds of it, like you said, it's a close like community, do you know what I mean? So like for you, do you find it hard to spot talent, or is it just something that you just picked up over the years? No, and don't get me wrong. So there's 2 things to talk about there. First of all is, you know when someone's good, because they go on stage and they just blow, like, audience reaction is such a good barometer of how good someone is. A lot of the time anyway. There's exceptions to that, because there's easy comedy where people are just going on and doing like stock old lines or telling pub jokes or whatever. That's not talent, that's just repeating something you've heard. But like when someone goes on and they're just being themselves, or they've got an act, or even just stories that they've refined, and you can just tell on a night when someone's head and shoulders above everyone else. Anyone can see it, the audience can see it, but especially as an experienced comic you can see it. But also it is a supportive industry at times, but there is also like an old guard who get very pissed off with the young ones.
But why is that?
Because we're taking their job.
Now they consider journeyman.
It's not even just that, it's like, so let me put it this way. There's that club I mentioned before, the Frog and Bucket in Manchester. So let's say they're open 50 weekends a year, right? So there's 200 spots then. Weekend spots I'm talking about. The host, the opener, the middle, the closer. 4 times 50, 200 spots. So if you're a headline act who's played that place for 10 years, and this year you've got 4 weekends out of it. If you've had a good weekend every one of those times, you would expect next year
to get more,
to get at least the same. But if there's a young guy coming through, you've got to knock. There's only a finite amount of spots, so you're always knocking someone at least one spot off them, or you're taking money out of their bank. And it takes a while to get, like the Comedy Store that you mentioned in Manchester. So there's 2 of them, London and Manchester. And once you're in with them, that's like a big stamp of approval in our industry. If you're known as a store act, you play the Comedy Store. Like the owner of the Comedy Store, his name's Don, and he's always been dead nice to me. He's been great. Like if he likes you, if you get to say on an email to a club, I play the Comedy Store, then they go, right, well, if you can play there, you can play here. That happens a lot. Like
when you play there, a lot of the comics who were there, or certainly up until a couple of years ago, there's been a slight sort of changing of the guard there in the past couple of years, but certainly 3 or 4 years ago when I first got in, there was a lot of comics who've played here for 25, 30 years, and they're noticing that normally, so there's 5 acts at the Comedy Store, there's 4 people doing sets in the compare. Normally, these guys are on with 4 of their best mates who they've known for 20 years. But this weekend when I'm on, it's 3 of their mates and me. And certainly when I first broke in there, I felt like a bit of a, you're not quite one of us, yeah. And there was one night in particular, I was talking about this yesterday with me missus. There was one night, and I remember it very clearly. So at the London Comedy Store, there's a show that starts at 7:30, the early show, and another one that starts at 11 o'clock at night. And that's a late start. I don't know how much time you spent in central London, but everywhere shuts at midnight. The Comedy Store late show starts at 11 o'clock, and if you're on second to last or last, you're on stage at 1 in the morning. Sometimes there's people falling asleep on the front row. It's very disconcerting when you're trying to do stand-up to someone who's a kid. And I was on second to last. So the way they do it, they have 2 acts and then a break and then another 2 acts, just one interval.
So is it best to get the earlier slots?
It depends, really. Like, in general, the best spot on the bill is first after the break, because everyone's just come back from having a wait. They've got a couple of drinks in them. They're in a good mood. But at that late show, obviously it is very late, so sometimes people are a bit tired and whatever. But on this night in particular, for some reason, the first half of the show, we'd watched it and it was lovely. The compare's on fire. The first 2 acts had a nice time. The audience were dead respectful there for the gig. And then something happened in that interval. It was like they all went to the toilet together and were all sharing one big bag of beak, because they come back after the break and it just erupted. Like, the compare goes on and there's people heckling, joining in, whatever. And I was on that night with, I won't name any of them, but I was on with 4 people who've played this place for 20 years and I'm the new guy. And I knew, so it was, I think it was my second full weekend there. I'm still on sort of, if you have a bad gig, this can go horribly wrong. And for some reason, it's one of the only places in the world that I ever, not anymore, but ever got nervous at. I've never really been nervous with any sort of shows. And I'm watching the compare and the room's just leery. And that can throw you off. It can. But I just said to myself backstage, I was like, you're in Liverpool. In your head, you're in Liverpool, you're at Hot Water, you're at your home club, just go out and act like that. And I went on and just had an absolute blinder. I made, instead of sort of just performing material to them, I made it about them. So instead of being like, oh, I had a hangover a few months ago and telling that story, the guy who was like rotting and shouting, I was like, you're going to have a hangover tomorrow and I'll tell you what it's going to be like. And I just sort of made the stories about them.
So you did a lot of improv, basically?
Yeah, I just tried to shape, because I knew I had to be a bit versatile with it. And when I come off, like, the sound tech who's worked there for years, he was like, I've never seen the guy who was closing that night, I'll tell you his name after the show, he was like, I've never seen him worried to go on.
Oh, wow.
And he was watching you there going, what the fuck's this kid? Like, and that was a big night for me, because I was like, I feel like I've sort of earned my place at the Comedy Store now.
That's good.
Because every other gig I'd had there had always just gone well. The audience had been nice and I'd gone on and done me stuff, and the audience had gone great, and the Comedy Store have gone, you're good. But that night I felt like I proved I can handle a rocky water. Do you know what I mean?
So you know the way you said, like, you did improv.
Yeah.
Do you ever? So obviously, I'm guessing you prepare your material that you're going to go on with beforehand. So what happens then? Like you're saying, like, the audience is reacting in a different way, and you've got to think on your feet to kind of change your material and stuff. Is that like a scary thought, or is it for you? It's just like, it's easier because I can just play off what I see.
It's a different skill. And there's certainly, like, obviously, if you're hosting, I don't know how many comedy nights you've been to, but if you're hosting, you tend to just be talking to the audience a lot of the time and trying to get, like, gold out of them. And there's some people who are amazing at that, and there's some people who are dog shit. And I'm in the middle. Like, I can host, and I enjoy it sometimes. But I definitely don't put myself in the elite of people who can do it. I'm better at reacting when I need to, rather than trying to force it. So, like, I don't want to encourage it. I don't want anyone listening to this and then coming to a show and being like, I'm going to shout at this cunt. But, like, I enjoy a bit of audience interaction, because it makes tonight's gig different to last night. If I just go on and do the 20 minutes I did last night, I've earned me money, I've had a good night and I can have a pint or whatever. But I also like when, because there's sometimes people in the audience who are like, I'm funnier than him. I
Yeah.
could do this. And they're the ones who heckle, and I'm like, but you're fucking not, though, are you? Like,
That's true, it's true,
sit down, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I've been to, when I went to see Mo the Comedian
Yeah.
in Liverpool. He didn't do it in one of the comedy stores. It was in like
There's
a
the
small
O2,
place.
didn't
I
there?
went with
O2.
you.
Did you
But
come-
I went
oh, yeah, you
twice.
came with me,
We went
yeah.
twice. I went and then I went again.
No, went twice, you know.
Yeah, no, not on the same. No, back to back
Oh,
years.
it's a kid.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, not back to back days. Back to back years.
it's not
So
funny.
the second time when I went, even though some of his material was the same, like I remember certain things were happening. I think when we went, there was a bee on. Was it when I went with you? And there was a bee
Yeah.
or like a wasp that kept like following everywhere. So he for like 5 to 10 minutes, he's like kind of incorporated this bee that's like not going away from him. And I'm thinking that he's done that on the spot and still
Yeah.
remembered everything that he's had to do. And I just
Yeah.
thought that was like amazing. Like you were saying, like he's been able
Yeah,
to.
it's muscle memory, though.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's riding a bike. He knows what he's doing, and he's very experienced now, Mo. Really,
Yeah.
because of like he's dead sound. He's a really, really good lad, and he's sort of made his own success with the clips like he used to put out and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's a person who it's hard to put your finger on it, but it like he walks into a room and he just gets the attention of everyone in the room immediately.
Yeah.
I don't even just mean on stage.
Just in
When
general.
Mo walks into the green room, everyone looks at Mo. It's just this star quality thing.
Yeah.
He very sort of nicely asked me to go and do. He does a few when he's working his new tournament not out. He does Mo Gilligan and Friends
Yeah.
at Up the Creek Comedy Club in Greenwich in London,
Yeah.
and he asked me to go down and do one of them. And he said, I'm going to host it. I've got 3 acts on. And normally, if you're hosting, you do 10 minutes at the start of the show, maybe 15. You do 5 minutes before the second act, maybe 10. And you do 2 minutes before the headliner, maybe 5. And he was like, this is my show. He did 40 minutes before the first act. He did 30 minutes before me in the middle. And then he did like 20 before
That's
he
a
brought the
long
last.
show.
But he was just like, everyone in the room loved him. It's his
Yeah.
show. So it's Mo and Friends. It's not like a normal comedy club. They'd gone for him and he knew that. And between him working his new stuff out, he's just like, he kept just getting distracted. Someone would like burp and he'd do 5 minutes on
Yeah.
this girl burping. Do you know what I mean? He's like, he deserves everything of what he's got. He's Mr. Saturday Night. he's going to be famous for a very long time.
Wow. Yeah, I've seen it when he's been on TV, and I've seen different shows that he's been on, and you can just tell it's like natural to him. Like there's no effort. It's like he doesn't second guess himself. But when you're like writing your material and stuff, like what gives you the inspiration to write your material?
I don't write like a lot of other acts that I know.
Okay.
So the only other act that I know that definitely writes the way I do is the other lad who's sort of had a bit of success from Hot Water, which is Paul Smith.
Yeah.
So a lot of comedians, and I wish I could do this because I think maybe I'd be even further ahead of my career. They'll sit with their laptop open or a notebook and they'll sit there and go, right, Monday between 1 and 4, we're writing some jokes and then we'll go and try them on Tuesday. And I wish I could do that and I just can't. So what I tend to do is go, right, this thing happened on the bus last week.
Yeah.
So let's just go on stage at Hot Water and tell the story and just let me brain fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
So there's not actually a written record of my material anyway.
I rate that.
That's actually quite sick.
I'll do that kind of process because I don't think I could sit there and write
So it's kind of
So-
like semi-improv, but it's based off
real life
stuff.
events.
Yeah, and like the way to say is I write on stage, and it's quite funny really because it means my shows end up getting longer and longer as the tour goes on. So the way sort of most comics work in this country is we do the Edinburgh Festival every year, or at least every other year. I don't think I'll be going back for the full run ever again. I think I'm a bit done with it. But so you've got to go up there with at least 50 minutes, 50, but you're aiming for an hour. So you hire your room to perform in for the month for the same hour every day. So my show was at 7 p.m. the last time I went up. So 20 to 7 until 20 past 8, that room's mine.
Yeah.
Because you get 20 minutes to set up and 20 minutes to get everyone out, and you get an hour to perform.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went up there, I think my show was like 50 minutes long. And then by the end of the festival, it was an hour and 15. Because I'm telling a story and I'm going, like I'll say something one day that I didn't say the day before, and I'll get a big laugh, and I'm like, well, that'll stay in.
Yeah.
And that happens again and again and again as the month goes on. And then after Edinburgh, I'll go on tour with that show, and you start on the tour with an hour and 15, and sometimes I get to the end of it, and like I'm going on stage at 9 o'clock at night, and I'm not getting off till 11:15, and I'm like, where's all that time gone?
But is there someone after you then? Do you need to like shorten your act or
At the
anything?
Edinburgh Festival?
Yeah.
And they end up getting pissed off at me because like when I'm on stage, I don't wear a watch.
Okay.
I said I didn't used to anyway. I'm gonna have to start. The only thing I'll do is I'll put my phone in my pocket on vibrate for an hour,
Okay.
so I know you've done an hour, get off. But like your closing routine's your best routine.
Yeah.
So if I haven't got to that yet when that buzzes, I can't just go goodbye because it just seems like a weekend to the show.
Yeah.
So then you got to do your closing routine, and sometimes that's 10-15 minutes. And yeah, towards the end of the run, last time I was sharing with a guy called Matt, and he's so fucking brilliant and he's dead sound. And towards the end of it, he was like, come on, mate. And I was like, yeah, I know. So I had to drop a couple of bits that I knew I was going to put back in on the tour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're writing on stage, you're constantly adding new lines. And
Yeah.
like, there's a routine I did many years ago. I haven't done it for a while, about these two girls on a bus discussing whether they would sleep with Nelson Mandela or not. And that was
Is that a true story?
a semi-true story. Yeah. I was on a bus going from West Derby into town, and it was just two girls, and they were like typical teenage 13-year-old, 14-year-old Scouse girls. And they're going, like, they're just like on like their phone or whatever, and they're going, would you sleep with I don't know, Channing Tatum? Would you shag him? And I was on my way to a gig as well, and one of them was like, what about Nelson Mandela? And I just couldn't believe it. And then I told that story on stage and gradually added to it, and in the end it was like an 8-minute bit. Because do you know the Slaughterhouse, the other comedy club in town? So I'm actually banned for life from there. But at one point I wasn't.
You need to tell us why.
I will do in a minute. Yeah. At one point I wasn't, and I told that story on stage, the Nelson Mandela story, and a girl came up to me after the show and she was like, I thought you were funny in that, but I've just got one question. You know that Nelson Mandela, is it Man City he plays for? Right? She thought it was a footballer. She thought it was Mario Balotelli. That's what she thought it was, right? And so that then added to the story. And what was in the first time I ever told that story on stage, I was on the bus and this happened, and it was like 45 seconds.
Yeah.
And in the end, it was like a 9-minute story that kept going in different places and whatever. And yeah,
Nelson Mandela's a ballot.
I know, it's mad, isn't it?
That is bad.
So, how did you get banned from the slaughterhouse?
So I can't really say too much.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I can say my bit, but like, so the Slaughterhouse and Hot Water Comedy Club, they had a few business disagreements, and I can't really go into much of that because it's not my place to say. But the owners of both of them, you know, they disagreed on a few things, and at one point it became you either play here or you play there.
Okay.
Not quite as black and white in that. So it was sort of like, if you play the Slaughterhouse 6 weeks before or after, you can't play Hot Water.
6 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's like a 3-month window that blocked you from performing in Liverpool, essentially. And that was because, so the Slaughterhouse were unhappy with something that Hot Water were doing. And Hot Water, you know, they hadn't really done anything wrong. So Slaughterhouse, I believe, spoke to Trading Standards, like, what can we do? And they were like, well, they're not really doing anything wrong. So the only thing you can do really is make your product look different to theirs. So try not to have the same lineups. So that's why they put that rule in place.
Yeah.
And then
that's how festival and music people. That's how.
So they don't clash.
That's how Warehouse put out Sankeys.
Ah.
Because the contract. So if you're signing, you're not allowed to play anywhere in the north for that period.
Yeah.
So then so they were signing it, getting everyone to sign them contracts, and they put the business out. I think that's dirty play, to be fair.
I understood it because they were trying to keep their lineups looking different.
Fresh,
And then what happened was I did a weekend at the Slaughterhouse, and then the week after, Hot Water had a cancellation on the day for their headliner, and they just rang me and were like, do you want to come and do it? And I was like, yeah, just don't list me. And I went and did it, and then the next day I got a phone call from the people who were on the Slaughterhouse, and they were like, did you do that last night? And I was like, yeah, but I wasn't listed. Like I thought that's why you were trying to do it. They were like, you'll never play it again. And then there was a big like argument between me and the owner's husband, who's another comedian, on like Facebook and stuff, and it got very fucking bitchy and nasty and shit. Yeah.
You'll never play in this town ever again. And you're like, fuck you, bitch.
That's mad. It's mad. When you first like performed outside Liverpool though, because we always get this when we go to like different cities, like you're scousers. I think maybe because like we're black as well.
Yeah.
But like, do you think being a scouser also as well and performing in other places adds to your craft?
Yeah. I mean, people either adore a scouser or hate them. And it tends to come down to what footy team they support. I think it helps me in London, and I think that's because a lot of comedians in London sound the same. They've all got the same voice. That's all sort of middle class, like guy who doesn't want to go into what their parents do, so they want to just try something different, and they all sound a little bit Eton educated or Cambridge, Oxbridge educated, and they all sound similar. And there'll be like two of them on, and then they bring me on. And I feel like because my accent's quite thick and I speak fast, I think like the audience are like, oh, we've got to listen. They have to listen a bit more. And when you listen more, you're gonna get more. You're gonna catch more of the jokes. You're gonna be laughing more. You're gonna understand what I'm saying more. So I think it helps me a lot there. I think it helps in Newcastle because there's this, and Glasgow, because I think there's this weird sort of relationship of unity between Glasgow, Newcastle, and Liverpool. I think they're very similar cities. And then weirdly, it helps in Manchester.
Okay.
Because you walk on and normally I'll get booed. Like immediately. Do you know what I mean?
Anything.
And or like you'll open your mouth and go, what's happening in Manchester? And they'll like someone will go, fucking Scouse Cods or something like that, do you know what I mean? And because most of the audience don't really care. They've all got a Scouse mate at work. So it's so easy to bury them immediately. And if you show it like straight away that you can deal with a heckle, especially in a city where everyone thinks they're funny, like Liverpool or Manchester, the audience is just on your side. And so my favourite one of that I know if any of my mates listen to this are gonna like say I'm name dropping and shit, because I've told this story 1,000 times. My favourite comedian of all time is an American called Bill Burr, who's got like on his last tour of the UK, I was the tour support. So I did Glasgow, Manchester, and the 2 nights in London, he taped his special at the Royal Albert Hall. I was his opening act. It was the best week of my life. And obviously in Manchester, at the Manchester Apollo, 3,500 people. And beforehand, we're sitting backstage, and Bill's a Liverpool fan. He wouldn't call himself that, but like he's trying to get into soccer, and he picked Liverpool as his team a few years ago. So he's like, so hey Adam, so it's you guys in Manchester City, right, for the title this year. So is there going to be any aggro? Like, is this going to be like Boston and New York? And I was like, yeah, it fucking is. I went, I guarantee you the second I walk out, I'll get heckled, someone will boo or something. And he shit himself a bit. He was like, fucking hell, dude, you're the fucking opening act. You're supposed to calm things down and get everyone fucking ready for me. Like, is this going to be... And I was like, don't worry, it'll be sound. And earlier that day, City had won their game in hand and gone like a point clear. It was January or February maybe, or March. It was early 2019. Right? And City had just... So I walked out and went, what's happened? And you got to remember, I wasn't listed. People, 3,500 Manx have bought tickets to see American superstar Bill Burr. And all day they've been like, we're going to see American superstar Bill Burr today. The last thing they're expecting is a cockeyed Scouser to walk out. You know what I mean? And the way, like, the guy who is tour manager, his name's Kenny, and he's known as Club Soda Kenny. He's infamous amongst American comics. He's like, if you listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, when he's got comedians on, they've all got a story about Club Soda Kenny. He was Bill Burr's tour manager. He's dead sound. He was really nice to me. But the way he introduced me, so I'm stood waiting at the wings, and he goes, I'm going to introduce you, okay? So he goes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Manchester Apollo, where tonight we present live in concert Bill Burr. And the room went crazy, and then he went, but first. And he announced me, and I walk on, and I went, "What's happening in Manchester?" And someone shouted, "We're top of the league, you scouse twat." And I just had, like, I don't do it anymore because I got it recorded at the Comedy Store on Deansgate and put it out as a clip. Yeah. But this, if I ever got heckled in Manchester, what I used to do is go, "Do you even know why you're meant to hate me?" Yeah. And they never do.
Yeah.
But it's because the Manchester Ship Canal and the Liverpool Docklands used to compete for work.
Yeah, that's what Lawrence is telling us on the pod.
Yeah. So I wrote a joke around that. I was like, what happened was, you know, we compete for work, we didn't like each other, and then both cities got really overpopulated, and Manchester decided, like, let's get rid of all our scum, send them to Liverpool.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, but we did the same thing at the same time, and they met in the middle, and that's how we got Warrington.
No, because I swear, like, Runcorn Warrington's, like, it's man-made.
Yeah.
Like Widnes and all them areas. Yeah, it probably is.
So I'd say that, like, they met in the middle, and that's how we got Warrington. That'll get a big laugh. And then I'll just go, but it looks like he's left one behind. And then he's put in his place, the audience, like the whole 3,500 Manx go, yeah, to be fair, we do all don't like Warrington like so. And yeah, he's watching at the side of the stage and he's just sort of nodding. Yeah.
But have you ever had it where you've had hecklers who just won't stop?
Yeah. And to be fair, like if it starts taking away from the show, I'll just say to a security guard, just fuck him off.
Yeah.
Because, like, it gets boring.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Hecklers tend to sort of be trying to be funny. And as soon as they realise they're not quite as funny as they think they are, plus I've got a microphone and I'm louder than you, they tend to shut up quite quickly. And I don't mind a heckler, because I sort of feel like if I wasn't a comedian, that might be me. So I don't mind that, and like I say, I don't mind a bit of crowd interaction because it makes tonight different than last night.
Yeah.
I can't stand talking amongst people, you know, amongst themselves.
Yeah.
It really grates on me. And if you're ever at one of my shows and you see it happening, you'll see it in my face. And I'll then be dead horrible to them and then get the doorman to kick them out. I'll give them a chance. I'll go, do us a favour. Just shut up.
Yeah.
I won't. And it's important with, like, stuff like that's taken away from the show to not be funny.
Yeah.
Because if they're talking and then I be dead funny and sort of make a joke about it, then in their head they're going, oh, I helped them get a laugh there.
Yeah.
We can carry on. I'm just dead blunt about it, and I'm just going, hey, girls, and it's always girls, do us a favour. The worst people you can ever have at a comedy club is a group of female teachers. Because all the kids don't listen to them all week, so they won't be fucking told. Do you know what I mean? Oh, lad, it's the worst. Christmas time, like December, when there's like work parties and that in.
Yeah.
When you see a load of teachers walk in and you can always spot them, you're always like, they're going to be a problem, and they always are.
Mad.
Yeah.
Wow. Could you not, like, at the start just tell them to, like, play musical chairs, just move them around?
Well, they often get, like, if there's a big group who look like they're going to be in trouble. Like, comedy clubs are, you know, the staff and certainly the door staff and the seating staff, they know when a group's going to be a nightmare. They just be sat near the back, so it's very easy to just lash them out the door. Yeah.
The hell?
You don't want them on the front row. Yeah. Even though they want to be. Groups want to be at the front. Take the piss out of stay. It's his fucking stag do. Like, they want that. Like, groups tend to get sat near where it's easy to eject them. Yeah. Groups are always the problem because, you know, if... Let's say, wherever you work in an office with 20 people and it's the Christmas do, it's the boss's decision what you do, innit? So the boss might go, we're going to the comedy club at Christmas, and maybe 10 of you, at like even 12, that's the max, love comedy and they're made up. There's still 8 people who either aren't asked or hate it. So, and they're just going because the boss is paying for all the ale. So they don't care about the show. They just want to talk and get pissed.
Yeah.
And yeah, groups can be a bit of a problem. December's the most lucrative month of the year for us, and also the most annoying. Yeah.
So there's one question I wanted to ask about, like, your comedy style. So me personally, I don't really like British comedy.
Me too.
Yeah. So I just, it's like,
well,
some of it's funny, but some of it's very bland.
When you say British comedy, though, are you talking about comedians who go on stage or in like TV and stuff?
TV and some British comedy. So when I was growing up, I'll say the comedians that, maybe because I'm black, but I would feel like Gina Yashere, Lenny Henry, and then if I was looking at like white comedy, it would be like, I like Matt Lucas, I like them, man, like I think they're funny. And then but then you've got like, I like Russell Brand as a person, but as a comic, he ain't funny to me.
Yeah, he's not funny.
Jack Whitehall is not funny. But people love them. And then when I used to watch a lot of Def Jam. That's when I started getting into comedy. And I was like, why is the material so different? Like, American comedy is like, it's funny. Like, if I look at it now, like, I listen to like what you listen to, like we listen to Dave. Me personally, I think Joey Diaz is one of the funniest comedians going. Like, I laugh. Even his podcast, I just laugh for no reason. He's funny. And you think like if they came here to do British stand-up, they wouldn't have that success. It's completely different.
It's totally different. We've spoke about this sort of endlessly on our podcast. Because me and Dan both prefer American comedy, really. There's a few exceptions to it. Like, I think Kevin Bridges is
he's funny,
as good as anyone we've got over here. I think Mickey Flanagan's brilliant as well. And it's not that I don't like British comedy, because I do. I just think we're about a decade behind America, at least. And there's so many reasons for that. Like, my agent's not going to forgive me for saying this publicly, but our industry is run by middle-class white men who like to hire middle-class white men.
Yeah.
And when they're not doing that, they're hiring on a diversity quota.
Yeah.
But they don't really care about who they're hiring. Like, I'm all for the positive discrimination of diversity for TV comedy. It's very important. You've sort of just touched on it. You grew up, and the only two comics you could really identify with were Gina Yashere and Lenny Henry.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were me, you've got Jason Manford, John Bishop, Kevin Bridges. There's loads of white lads who you can watch on the telly and be like, I can relate to this. Do you know what I mean? So the good and real argument for positive discrimination when it comes to hiring for TV is so that people see themselves represented on the screen. So if there's a young Indian girl, she should be able to see someone
like,
of South Asian heritage being funny on the telly, so she can be like, this is possible for me.
They got my guy though, who is funny, from Asian Provocateur. He's got the eyes with the glasses.
The eyes with the glasses.
Eyes with the glasses.
He's funny. Oh, he's hilarious. What's his name now?
I'm not too sure what you're talking about.
You never seen it? He does raps and stuff. He's gone quite famous now.
Unless you show me a picture, I can't think of the top of my head. But what you were saying though, just leading off to that, I think that is you've hit the nail on the head really, because I think especially with like there was a show again. I'm going to talk about more the comedian, but he did a show with like all the like the black and ethnic minorities that haven't had their flowers, like who've been doing comedy for years. And like, it's kind of like they're pushed to the side a little bit.
Yeah.
And they don't get the same opportunities that everyone else does.
Yeah.
So their stories aren't told. So like you were saying, like certain people are only hiring certain people.
Yeah, so I hate slagging TV shows off that I want to be booked for, but...
Don't
like,
say names.
They're all run by the same people.
Yeah.
And they all know each other. And TV is hired by people who have worked in TV or their dad's worked in TV, and it's, you know, it's a clique really.
Yeah.
And what happens now is they go, right, well, our 4 regulars are middle-class white men, so we need a black girl and someone disabled. And then they go to Edinburgh and they pick the first black girl and the first... They don't care about... They're just doing it so they keep their job.
Yeah.
They don't care, really. Because if you're going to talk about genuine diversity, you need diversity of voices, you need diversity of opinion.
Yeah.
Like, I consider myself left-wing, like very, very left-wing, but borderline socialist, do you know what I mean? Most TV comedy is left-wing. There should be more right-wing, because there's right-wing comedians.
Yeah,
they should be represented. There should be more working-class representation. There's one of the well-known TV panel shows a few years ago. I wrote an article about, like, where's the working-class representation when we're looking at every other box to tick. And I found that a well-known panel show on the telly had not booked a single act in 10 years that did not live in London.
So I was gonna...
Not necessarily from London, but they'd all had to move there. And what does that say to people like me? I've got to move to London if I want to be on that show.
Yeah.
People look at it from the standpoint where London, because I do like media and we all do stuff like that. So it's like, if you're not in London, you lose these opportunities. And I've seen it from living in Manny and Liverpool. you can't get to set talent because they live in Liverpool, live in London.
Yeah.
You can't work with these people because, well, it's not London.
Yeah.
The travel costs. That's why a lot of agencies have one in London and one is somewhere else, so they can do that because they were losing a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because it's not accessible. I don't know why, but another thing is it's there's always this common like, I don't know, it's accents.
Yeah.
So imagine if you use proper Scouse, like we're North Liverpool, isn't it?
No,
Yeah.
South. If you use proper North Liverpool and you use like what up,
Brutal.
yeah, they will consider you common, and I don't think you would have that platform. It's like, imagine putting a proper. This is what, with comedians, especially with I think with English comedians, your accent from wherever you are can't be as, imagine like a proper, because you'd be considered
Yeah, I
common.
know what you mean.
You would be considered like.
There's a push for it now. There's a push for diversity of voices, and like I submitted something recently. There's a thing for BBC3 which is now all online, and I had to submit 3 ideas for it, and the producer who's making that is like a fan of mine, a friend of mine, and his missus is a comedian as well, and she's helping him put the pitch together to BBC3, who have asked for people to pitch this. It's a good chance it'll get made, but she rang me and was like, what can we say about you that makes you diverse? Because we need to say to the BBC, he ticks this box. And I was like, well, say that I'm working class, say that I've got a regional voice that they don't have much of on their channel. Like, they have to push it that way. I think, to go back to your original question here, which was sort of the difference between British and American comedy, I think it's sort of the way the circuits work as well. First of all, the TV industry over here is run by a certain type of person, whereas in America, it's so big that the different shows are booked by different people. I think also audiences over there are used to the Def Jam style that you're talking about, and you know, more opinionated and abrasive and confident and high status comedy, where the comedian puts himself above the audience. A lot of people over here is, well, I'm a bit silly, aren't I? I'm a bit daft. My position is below the audience. Laugh at me. Whereas in America, it's sort of outwards rather than inwards. And for example, you know, you were talking about, like, before at the very start, like John Bishop, you don't see him much on telly anymore. You don't see him doing comedy clubs. He'll do a tour in arenas, and then he'll go, right, I'll take a year and a half off, and then I'll do a few work in progress shows, and then I'll go back on tour. When I worked with Bill Burr in London, 2 weeks later, he was back at the Comedy Store in LA, trying new material, because it's their life to them.
That's their gym.
Yeah. It's literally their gym. They're back in the gym, they're working out, they're getting their next thing ready, they're getting the next hour ready. I think comedians in America go straight back to what's next, what's the next thing, whereas over here, I think they rest on the laurels a bit. I also think a lot more of the American comics are in the gym. Like, a lot of comics over here who are going on a big tour, they do a work in progress tour first, but it's still in front of their own fans. The tickets go out to their mailing list, and they do like a load of small little art centres before they go to big theatres and arenas. Whereas in America, they don't do that. They go to a comedy club where if there's 100 people in the audience, maybe 50 of them know who they are. And maybe 20 of that 50 are their fans, but that means 80 people in the room either don't know them or don't like them. And if you can get your material to work in front of them, then when you take it in front of your own fans, it's going to be amazing. If you start off in front of your own fans, you'd end up a bit vanilla. You'd end up a bit sort of, if you're just performing in front of people who already like you, they're the best gigs you'll ever have. When I go on tour and it's my show and people have paid to see Adam Rowe, you can't really go wrong. You're shooting fish in a barrel. Like, everyone already likes you. You don't need to really work to get their respect or their adulation. They've already decided they like you before they bought the ticket. Whereas if I do Hot Water or the Comedy Store Late Show, you're going on stage in front of 400 people who haven't got a fucking clue yet, and they don't care. So you've got 25 seconds to get them on board. And you've got to do it quick. And then as soon, like, they might like that one joke, but the next one's got to be great as well to keep them on board. And I think that's why Americans are a little bit further ahead, because they're doing that even when they're at the arena level.
But that might also be because of the size of America as well. So as you were saying, like, in America, you have the opportunity to go somewhere that's completely nowhere near where you're actually from. And there's more opportunities just because of the size of where you are. Whereas in the UK, like you were saying before, I can't remember which ones you said, but once you play at them, they're like the stamp of approval.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
They do have that in America too.
yeah.
And it tends to be in LA and New York. And LA's sort of dying. So Joe Rogan's just moved from Los Angeles to Austin, Texas. And I know Tom Segura looks like he's going to follow him. And there's some other comics from New York who are now, because of the pandemic, LA and New York are really struggling because the rents are sky high.
Yeah.
And so people are just going, I'll go back to fucking Missouri where I'm from then until this is all over. And then there's landlords in New York like, what the fuck do I do with this apartment in Manhattan? Because people who live there aren't necessarily lifers. They're people who've moved to New York to pursue a dream. But there's a comedy store in LA, and if you're a paid regular, which is their sort of, that means you're in with them, and that's a big stamp. And there's the Comedy Cellar in New York, which is quite famous because Louis C.K.'s sitcom was based there. Those two clubs on the East and West Coast, if you play the Comedy Cellar, that's a big thing. If you play the Comedy Store in LA, that's a big thing. So they do have that. But as you say, like, I remember when I went out to America last year, I just went to New York in the end, but I was going to do LA as well. I was going to, not last year, sorry, the year before. And then last year I was going to do both. And I've got a contact out in LA, and I was like, can you help me get some gigs in New York and LA? And he works in the comedy industry. And he was like, well, I can help you with LA, but not New York because I don't know anyone there. So even this guy who's a big deal in LA comedy, they've got no connection with New York.
Okay.
So it's like two completely different countries, really, because it's that big. Whereas in England, I know who books every single club in this country. There's not one comedy club that I haven't got the email or the phone number for.
Yeah.
And this guy is a really big noise in LA, but he's like New York. You just have to find someone else.
Yeah.
So how did they take your comedy in New York? In LA?
I didn't go to LA in the end.
Oh, you didn't?
I went to New York.
Okay.
And it was great. I think again the accent, they're listening a bit more. I had to change one reference, weirdly. So I had this joke about giving a homeless fella money and having this like upper own ass girl say you shouldn't give them money, you should buy them food because you're encouraging them, you know, to do whatever.
Yeah.
And part of the joke is like, well, I don't think he wants a sandwich, I think he wants cider. Who the fuck are you to tell him what he can and can't have? And that the way I haven't done the joke there, but the way I deliver it, when I say I think he wants cider, it gets a big laugh over here, like a really big laugh. And I did it on the first night in New York, and I got fuck all.
Because they didn't know what cider was.
No, they know what it is.
Okay.
It just doesn't come across the same.
It's not. It's seen as a middle class summer drink.
Oh, serious?
Okay.
Ah.
Yeah, like homeless people over there don't drink it.
Right, okay.
$4.50 local.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they drink.
Yeah, they haven't got white lightning in New York, apparently. So did it the first night and I got fuck all. I went back to the hotel and said to my girlfriend, I was like, joke just died. Like everything else worked, but this just fell flat on its ass. And she went, maybe you delivered it wrong. And I was like, I must have. So then the second night out there, I did it again and fuck all. And I knew one of the comics on that night.
Yeah.
I went, why did that joke get fuck all? Second night in a row. And he went, homeless people don't drink cider. And I was like, they do where I'm from. And he was like, yeah, not out here. They drink like vodka or whiskey. Okay. So say that. And I went, okay. So I changed it to vodka or whiskey or whatever I changed it to. And it worked. The joke worked again.
Wow.
So like,
So it's that understanding of knowing where you are, what relates to them.
yeah, it's just a reference can change completely.
Wow.
I was selective with what material I did, obviously, because there's stuff I can do over here about whatever that, like, I didn't realise that cider one was going to be one of the things that was British only, but yeah, I wasn't doing as long sets out there either. So the longest set I did in New York was 15 minutes. Over here, 20 to 30 is like standard once you're a pro.
Yeah.
In New York, I was doing 5, 10s and 15s. Like I did the Comedy Cellar and I did 5 twice. And I had to do 2 completely different 5s, and I had to pick that material very carefully because the Comedy Cellar, as I'm saying, like, you want to be in there.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you know, with like you mentioned just before, like you had to change your reference when you were saying like a certain joke.
Yeah.
And then you alluded to the whole cider thing that, like, you know, you didn't know it was, you had to deliver it a certain way, but like, what is your sort of like thought, obviously being 10 years in the game, and like, you know, like sort of like dark humor? Like I've been to like 1 or 2 of the shows in the comedy club. Like I've just been given a ticket to go.
Yeah.
And some of the jokes they've said something, and I've just been like, hang on, like, are they supposed to be saying this? Like, what's your sort of like?
So I have a long standing sort of, not argument, but disagreement with another mate of mine about this. He will say anything that he thinks is funny. I'll say anything I feel like I can defend.
Okay.
But I will also defend his right to have his stance. So if someone comes up to me after the show and goes, I didn't like that joke, I'll tell them why they're wrong. He's got jokes he can't do that with because he is saying something wrong. But I still think he should be allowed to do that because I think a comedy club, you've come to see us.
Yeah.
We didn't come to see you. Do you know what I mean? Like I when we got allowed to come back from lockdown the first time, I was doing some jokes that I know people were getting a bit like most of the audience are dying laughing because you're surprising them.
Yeah.
And a big reason why people laugh is they're surprised, which is why jokes aren't always good the second time you hear them because you need like that's why comedians need to change their material more often than a musician does. A musician can knock the same song out for 30 years. You can't do that as a comic. You need to constantly be writing new stuff. So I was doing stuff about like I don't care that all your nans are dead. Right? I was like, yeah, we've lost a few of them this year, but you know, it's about time. Old people are a bit entitled. I don't like them. And then, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And then I can see some people getting a bit like, and I'm like,
it's a comedy show.
If I knocked on your front door and was like, how's your dead nan? Then you can punch me in the face, do you know what I mean? But you're at the comedy club. You've got to at least assume that I'm joking and that you can't take it seriously. And, you know, everyone can get upset by anything. And if you say that one thing's off limits, then it's so easy to go to the next one. Like, a big topic in our industry is whether you can ever joke about rape, for example, right? Because the chances are there's going to be a victim of sexual assault in the room. And I understand that. And I understand that that person hasn't come to hear about whatever. I would never, ever make a joke myself where a rape victim is the butt of the joke. I know comics that would. I don't really think it's funny. But again, I'll defend any comic's right to, as long as they're trying to be funny. But if I have made jokes around that subject before, and I've had people go, yeah, but what about this? And I'm like, yeah, but if I make a joke about stair lifts, and then someone's granddad died last week in a stair lift, then they could come to me and go, you shouldn't do jokes about stair lifts. Yeah. If I make a joke about peanuts and someone goes, oh, my little cousin was allergic to peanuts and she died because she had an allergic reaction, anyone can get upset or triggered by anything. And because of that, I feel like if there's something that if it got brought up, and this is, if you are listening to this, if there's a subject where if it got brought up, your month would be ruined, don't go to a comedy club because the chances are someone's going to touch on it. So
you've just said such a good point. So I think now comedy is being like diluted. Yeah. Because whatever you can say now is very controversial. So you could say one thing, it's like, oh my God, he's against women. Or he said one thing, oh, well, he's politically incorrect. You said something wrong. Oh, well, he's a racist. Yeah. So there's so many misconceptions. Come on, big man. Yeah. There is with comedy because now it's making you wonder now because you don't want to be cancelled. Yeah. But I think comics lean into this whole cancel thing as well. Like, I do think you're right. I think there's definitely a mob, an internet mob. Twitter's the worst for it. Yeah, it is. Of he said this and that is wrong and we should all hate him and let's all hate him and no one buy tickets to him anymore. But most people think they're idiots. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's quite hard. Like Dave Chappelle did a lot of anti-trans stuff on one of his specials, and then it was Chappelle is cancelled, and he's had 2 specials since then. And he had, so that's not very cancelled, is it? Didn't he have reviews? He started getting people to write bad reviews about him. Exactly. Yeah, but then he put Sticks and Stones out, which is for my money top 5 comedy special of all time for so many reasons. Like, I think it's so underrated even by people who enjoyed that special. Yeah. Like the Prince song at the start, the use of that and what he's doing with it. He didn't only just set up his whole show, he set up the reaction to it. Yeah. Like if you haven't seen it.
Is that the one where he says the butt of the joke and then he goes through and says the joke?
No. That's equanimity.
It's the one where he's proper like...
He's in the green jumpsuit.
Yeah, okay, I've seen that one as well, yeah.
So he starts, you can't even see him it's a black screen.
Yeah, I've seen both.
And
yeah.
he's sort of speaking the words to 1999 by Prince.
Yeah.
So he says, I was dreaming when I wrote this, forgive me if it goes astray. When I woke up this morning. This is my breakdown of it anyway. Could have sworn it was Judgment Day. So I think what he's saying is, I'm going to get judged for this.
Yeah.
Sky was all purple. There were people running everywhere, trying to run from my destruction. You know I didn't even care. He's saying, people are going to kick off, and I'm not asked, because I'm just going to bail.
Yeah.
What's the next bit? Sky was all people running everywhere.
Something's we're going to party like it's
They say 2000, oops, party over, out of time. So tonight I'm going to party like it's 1999. And I think what he's saying is, the party's over. You can't say anything anymore.
Yeah.
But tonight, I'm going to party like it's 1999 and say whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he then does for the whole special.
Yeah, he does.
Like, there's a routine in it where he's like, you know, I think it's quite funny, transgender issues, because, you know...
Alphabet people.
Yeah, there's that bit. And then also, when he makes the Chinese face...
Oh, yeah.
When he's like, what if I was, like, Chinese but born in this body and I had to make that face forever? Yeah. That's quite a low joke.
Yeah, it is.
It really, really is. And when I watched it, I spat my drink out laughing. And my girlfriend, she was watching it and she doesn't really like that type... And she really laughed. She was like, I can't believe I laughed at that.
Yeah.
And I was like... It's because he's just taking as many shots as he can.
But
he wasn't cancelled, do you know what I mean? Because like that special got more shit than the other one he did.
Yeah.
And then he got a Grammy for it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? With Dave as well, one thing that he does very well is he sometimes introduces topics that are maybe politically incorrect.
Yeah.
And he spins it in a way where you're actually being educated.
Yeah.
Even though like some of the topics might be a bit like touchy or sensitive, he's actually educating people. So sometimes the butt of the joke isn't actually the people in the topic, it's just he's used them to create the joke, basically.
One of my favourite techniques is a comic, and it's one that I really, really like employing, but it takes a little bit of balls and it takes a lot of skill to do, is to say something that you know the whole room is going to disagree with, and then you spend 5 minutes making them laugh while you convince them you're right.
Okay.
So, a couple of years ago, Victoria's Secret said they would never have a fat or a transgender model.
Yeah.
Is that what they actually openly said?
Yeah. One of their like big bosses was like, never have a fat model, we'll never have a transgender model. And obviously that created a bit of a stir on the internet. So I wrote a routine saying I think that's the right thing for that company to do.
I remember seeing, not the article, but I remember seeing the main one that came out,
Like, so I did a routine about that. And when I first started doing it, the audience were like, no, they should obviously hide that. By the end of it, they're laughing. And even if they're not like, right, I agree with you. Because I had a woman come up to me after me show in Edinburgh when I did that routine and a load of others that were a bit taboo. And she went, I thought you were really funny, but I don't agree with anything you've said. And I went, you know what? Neither do I. I don't say things on stage because I necessarily believe them. I say them because I think they're funny. Like, I think Dave's great at that. I think Bill Burr's great at that.
Yeah.
But
Patrice O'Neill, who's now, I don't know whether you know Patrice, but
yeah, I know Patrice.
He died,
I think he's probably the best ever at that sort of thing.
There's one thing. So when comics say stuff and they say these on the line kind of things, I think it's just for the joke and I laugh at them.
Yeah.
There's only one comic to this day, I still feel like what he did was a dick move, and it was when it's a year ago now when Kobe Bryant died, and then Ari Shaffir
Oh, yeah.
Even I was like, they should end man's career. Like, it was not funny. Like, it was okay. Obviously, like, I don't even know if I could hack it now if man did a joke about it now, but I think it wouldn't have that impact. Of when he died straight away.
Was it because it was Kobe?
No.
I think it was because of the details he put into it.
And
it
was too soon. It literally was too soon. Like, I could handle it. Like, obviously, like, for set people, like, there's always going to be Michael Jackson jokes. There's always going to be, like, all these different kind of jokes. I could hack that. But if I could hack it now, but the way he did it, like, the guy and his daughter died.
Yeah.
Like, it was not just the guy.
Yeah.
You need to think, like... See, like, you need to think,
there's
like...
more than that. There was more people on the plane.
Oh, there's more
well.
people, but, like, he's not spinning the joke at the other people.
Okay.
He's spinning the joke at him.
Yeah.
And you need to think he didn't die by his ones.
No.
Like, he's gone. Like,
so, I didn't think what Harry did was funny.
Yeah.
So I've met Harry a couple of times. I don't think what he did was funny.
It wasn't funny at all.
However, first of all, he's done that same thing
For the dead people.
for loads of other celebrities who's
Yeah.
died. It's like one of his things. And that will not have won him any new fans like you.
Yeah.
But the people who already like his stuff know he does that. So his fans will have loved that and thought it's hilarious. Do you know what I mean? I, as a comic, don't think it was funny. But again, I think it's a swing and a miss. And an analogy I always use with comedy is the closest comedy is on the line. Like, it's bang on the line of right and wrong. And when you're trying to walk in a straight line on the line of right and wrong, occasionally you're going to do that. And you're going to be, especially when it's like reactive, topical, new stuff. He's a controversial, offensive comic. And he's going to piss some people off. But, like, I've got more respect for people who are offended by everything rather than individual things. Because, like, for example, and it's very hard for me to say stuff like this because, you know, there's things that affect me as well, but I'll defend any comic's right to make any joke about anything. And if they get it wrong, yeah, you fucked up there, don't do that again. I can't go, well, I can make jokes about Michael Jackson. I had to stop my Michael Jackson bit because Dave Chappelle basically did it slightly better. Like, I watched the special and I was like, well, that's in the bin. My joke was like, I think he did it, but this kid should be grateful that at least he picked them. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's the greatest paedophile of all time.
Because he sets up their lives, innit?
Would you rather be getting nonced by him or like someone who works in fucking Greg's? You know what I mean? At least he taught you the moonwalk and you got to play with his monkey and that. Do you know what I mean? There was advantages.
Man.
I remember that Dave Chappelle joke as well. He did that one quite well as well.
Yeah. It was just better than my version.
Yeah.
Like, it was, so I just had to drop it.
Do you think Dave saw yours and thought, fuck it, I'm running with this?
I don't think that happened because I did that in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And then on like the 1st of September, his special dropped and it was in it. So he must have been doing it for a year on tour.
Okay.
He must have been. And I just didn't go to his tour show, so I hadn't seen it. I was watching, I was like, oh, that's in the bin. I can't make that joke. And then, for example, if someone does a Hillsborough joke, I can't go, you can't do that.
Yeah,
like I've sat, so there's a show that happens at the Edinburgh Festival called Hate and Live, which is an offensive comedy show. And I do it every year. I'll do it once or twice throughout the festival. And I've done it sat next to a comic who did a Hillsborough joke. And I just had to sit there and let it happen. Because I can't do the comedy I do and defend the comedy I defend and then go, you can't say that. I'm allowed to think it's not funny.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's funny.
Yeah.
But
It's the right of the
nothing's off limits because, like I say, the best comedy's on the line. So, I like, some people just like really offensive stuff, but I can't honestly say that Michael Jackson's victims should be grateful that he chose them, and then say someone. I think the worst thing you can go through is getting nonced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't make jokes about that and then expect other people to be like, well, I respect your feelings and not make a joke about this.
Yeah. Especially when it's comedy. Like you were saying, people should go to shows or watch things with the expectation that comedians' jobs are to make light of any situation.
Yeah.
So you can't really be angry at them of making light of any situation.
No.
Simple as. But I think a lot of people, because of like how the world is and social media is, you can be outraged about anything really.
Of course you can. And you've got every right to be. And if something really, really upsets you and you want to try and get someone whatever, then go for it. I think you're a knobhead. But that's your right. That's your freedom of speech.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I can't say I've got the right to say this, but you haven't got the right to say that.
Yeah.
I get like pissed off with comics when they're always like, oh, this woke culture, whatever. It's like, they're just doing what you're doing, but the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
They're like, if you can make a joke about that, then they can go on Twitter and go, he shouldn't be allowed to make a joke about that. And the people who agree with them aren't going to watch your stuff and they're not going to come to your shows. And the people who disagree with them will.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I think the mob mentality thing of cancel culture, and I think when people lose their jobs, like there was, you know, there's comics who, like when Kevin Hart
Yeah.
got cancelled from hosting the Oscars. I thought that was ridiculous.
I think that's stupid, to be fair.
But at the same time, if you were gay, or like if you'd gone through that, having to come out to your parents and like knowing that your father didn't like gay people, you'd probably find what he said dead offensive and be like, that's horrible, and I'm not a fan of Kevin Hart anymore. But you know,
I just only want to say something like quick about that. I hope no one listens to this and get this offended, but like being like, so when he made them tweets, being gay, you need to think, it's so mad saying this, but like,
No, I know you're
these social issues were pushed is only because it's in trend.
yeah,
So being black at the time was in trend, and then after that, so early 90s, everything that you look at on TV was black influence culture. When it got to the early 2000s, it was pushing out. Then it started becoming the gay, and then from gay, it was like children who have no gender. Like you see TV shows now that there's the bare little kids with no gender, and I'm thinking, can't people see like back then it wasn't an issue and it's not in trend, so you can make jokes.
yeah.
Now it's in trend and it's in the media. Now it's outrage. You was laughing about these things 3 years ago. Now that people are making money from it, you can't say that. It's politically incorrect.
Exactly. Like, I'm a big believer that things have to be judged in the time they were made in. You know, the amount of articles I've seen saying like Friends should be taken off Netflix because
there's no black people in it and stuff.
No, it's too white. Everyone's homophobic to Chandler. There's fat shaming of Fat Monica. It's like, yeah, but no one really cared back then.
Yeah, nobody cared.
Especially when it came out in like 1995
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
and stuff. The world was completely different.
But it's not even a big gap. It's because trends, every 5 years a new trend comes in and you need to make money of it. So because now that's in, like, you need to think like I have nothing against no one, but you need to think like, even now, like with what's happened for that year, people are capitalizing off Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Like I've seen things that what people do to promote Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with it.
OnlyFans.
Yeah, OnlyFans.
Yeah.
What?
You were smiling then?
I don't know.
Yeah, he's mentioned. I know what you're talking about. You've mentioned.
Yeah,
something
yeah.
about-
What are you talking about?
Black Lives Matter OnlyFans. That's niche, that
Oh, jeez.
I'm gonna leave now.
Like people use things because they know they can catapult from that. So then and make
Oh,
money.
mate, like it's like during Pride Month.
Yeah.
Every fucking shop's got a rainbow in the window.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
before that, they don't
They
have
don't
any.
care.
Yeah,
It's just a way to go, oh, it's your month, so you come and shop here. It's virtue signaling, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
oh, we support everyone. We're great. Us, what a great company we are. We like people loved it. I hate it more than anything in the world. Is this idea that they're a perfect company and they've never sort of fired anyone who's gay when they defo have, and like. It's not about putting a fucking rainbow in the window. It's about making people feel safe and wanted and comfortable and be okay to be whoever they are. Like, everyone should be allowed to be exactly who they are. People should be allowed to think it's a bit fucking weird as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Just don't persecute people for who they are. Like, you can privately think, like, not understand something. Like, I think it was Jim Jeffries on one of his latest specials was like, his dad grew up in rural Australia. And, you know, he didn't like gay people for a long time. And then when Australia voted on gay marriage, his dad voted in favour of gay marriage. And I was like, I did that because I taught him that it's okay. And then a few months later, someone called him transphobic. And I was like, listen, this guy's just got used to gay people. Let's just, let's give it a minute before we bring the next thing in. Do you know what I mean? Let him have his day in the sun where he's just celebrating the fact he's got onto the last thing.
Yeah.
Like, there's this want for everyone to be socially perfect, and no one really is.
I get that.
That's true.
And this idea that anyone is a total fallacy.
Yeah.
And if anyone was, then next week they won't be.
Yeah, it's true. Because something's changed.
Question just to everyone before we have to wrap up. Do you think you can separate an individual from what they do from their talent?
Separate the art from the artist.
That's what I meant, yeah.
I think it depends on what they've done.
Yeah.
Like, I think, you know, I don't think anyone's going to be.
There's one name that pops to mind, and that people have just.
So I got one. I don't know if it would be the same
He's a
person.
singer.
Okay, now I got somebody
He's still
else.
alive. He's a singer, and
Is
he's
this-
an amazing R&B singer. But obviously,
Okay.
he's probably the king underneath Michael Jackson, and his
The king
initials
under
are.
Michael
He
Jackson?
pissed on a 14-year-old girl,
That's
didn't
the
he?
exact one. Yeah, yeah. So that one, I think it's like.
But then you hear, I don't even feel that that's him, because the art of the artist. I genuinely feel like that is when you get to that level. I was speaking about this today, and we was talking about like it's more because we was talking about Prince Andrew, and like I'm in this group that talks about like Jeffrey Epstein and stuff.
You're on a government watch list, you lot.
Yeah. So we always talk about it, and like there's different things that pop up, or when people find new findings, you put it in the group and we talk about it. So someone was saying like Princess Diana knew, and that's how she got maked off. I was like, nah, because the time frames are too different. But they were like, no, it was happening. But I was like, it'll be a better time for him to get away with it now, back then, than it is now, because it's not today that people do these mad shit. It's not today where people piss on kids. It's mad to say. I don't know why I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing. But it's not today that happens. People do it.
Yeah, my point was just saying that.
Elites do it.
Yeah, it happens.
People
all the
want
time.
what they can't have.
Yeah.
And that's why billionaires fuck kids, because
Yeah.
they can have anything else in the world. They can
Yeah.
have women, property, land, private jet, anything. And people want what they can't have. That's why people struggle to diet. Because if I'm on a diet, I can't have a Mackies. So as soon as I'm on a diet, all I want is a Mackies.
Yeah,
And
a
that's
good
why
analogy.
billionaires do horrible shit.
So-
Because they can have anything, but the one thing they can't have is a
Is that-
kid. So then they end up doing it. I'm convinced that I'm onto something with this.
I think that's
Maybe.
actually correct. Yeah, because you need to think. R. Kelly's the only person, or the one that's come out. You look how many names keep on getting dropped every year. I'm not even surprised no more with more people, because that's how the whole concept of casting couch started. It wasn't. It's not. Everyone knew, like, you even seen it on sitcoms. They used to make jokes like, when you go and do auditions, did you sleep with the casting director?
Yeah.
Like, they always used to throw in sly jokes.
Yeah.
But that's the shit that was actually really happening.
Of course it was.
But then now,
And there's a lot of people in the entertainment industry who've got stuff in their closet that's
yeah,
either on its way out or You've mentioned someone on this podcast,
yeah,
today,
yeah.
and I'll tell you as soon as we stop recording, 'cause I would literally be sued if I said it, who is a known rapist.
Mad.
Like, and I'd love to say it right now and out them,
Yeah.
but it's literally super injunctioned on all. Like, there's been TV journalists who were looking into this and super injunctioned. It's been stonewalled. There's been there's been so much stuff around it where it's nearly come out. If you search it on Twitter, you can find bits of it.
Mad. I'm
Like-
gonna have a little gander tonight.
Yeah, like.
Yeah, I think we should end it on there before we say yeah. But
This is another one where I will need a part 2.
yeah, we will, but definitely.
I'll
yeah,
definitely
yeah.
come back whenever you want me.
100%.
So yeah, where can the people find you?
Twitter's Adam Rowe Comedy, Instagram's Adam Rowe Comedian, and my podcast is at Have a Word Pod everywhere. Me Facebook's just Adam Rowe. They're all verified accounts, so if it's not blue ticked, then you've found the wrong one.
There you go. You heard it here loud and
I
clear.
can't wait till I get a blue tick.
If it's not verified, then it's
Mum,
not
I
Adam.
made it.
But yeah, you can obviously find us Front Left Podcast, Front Left Pod on Twitter, on Instagram.
OnlyFans.
I don't think me and Josh will be on that OnlyFans. We'll just be trying this out.
Fat Joe started OnlyFans.
Who's Fat Joe, the singer, the rapper?
Fat Joe.
DJ Khaled and Fat Joe have got an OnlyFans.
Yeah, but that's not for that though.
but
That's
it's still
that's to do DJing and
You
show
know
the
what?
music
We got
craft.
only Huns. I'm top 0.5%.
Anyway, that's over now.
Yeah.